Of murder are reported 6.
From around the world and from CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather.
Good evening. Congress and the White House are playing a political poker game for billion-dollar stakes. The money is the domestic spending cuts the Republican Senate wrote into temporary funding legislation to keep the government operating after midnight tonight. The Democratic House approved no such cuts. So late this afternoon, the matter went to a conference committee. Phil Jones and Bill Plant report.
Well, most of the members have now arrived and the late-night political game show has commenced. After several delays, the 60 or so Senate and House members assigned to the conference committee have finally convened. The delays today have been blamed on several problems, from the excuse that the computer broke down to the complaint that it took hours to analyze the 75 Senate amendments which were written on everything, including toilet paper. The problem is that the midnight deadline is getting very close and that the numbers are still far apart on an emergency funding resolution. The House-passed version, according to White House budget figures, provides none of the president's requested $8.5 billion in savings. The Senate-passed bill, which includes a 4% cut on most spending except defense and entitlements and food stamps, would amount to about $5.5 billion in savings. This would be acceptable to the White House. But House Democrats are talking about a different approach that would also affect defense.
Defense, military construction, and foreign affairs is exempt. In other words, they are not reduced in any way. And most of us feel that everyone should have to bite the bullet and there should be some reductions.
I think that if it were cut, if a defense cut were added to this conference report, that it's highly likely that the president would veto the bill.
So the talking is underway, and the clock is ticking toward that midnight deadline when government technically runs out of operating funds. But indications are that even if the conferees do reach a compromise late tonight, it may be tomorrow before both the Senate and House vote final passage. And then there's no assurance that President Reagan will accept what they've done. Phil Jones, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
As members of Congress wrangled over the budget cuts, the president came to Capitol Hill for the dedication of the new James Madison building of the Library of Congress across the street. The White House, in a veiled veto threat, was saying that Mr. Reagan would find it difficult to accept anything less than the Senate version of the budget. And the president himself compared his situation to that of the fourth president, James Madison.
I feel a great affinity with James Madison. I'm told that his worry over the size of the national debt drove him to distraction. I could sympathize. The debt was not of his making either.
National Security Advisor Richard Allen, meanwhile, insisted to reporters that he would be vindicated in the Justice Department investigation of the $1,000 honorarium he received from Japanese reporters after they had interviewed First Lady Nancy Reagan. He denied that he'd been asked by the White House for any new information.
Has the White House ordered you to make a review of your files for a separate investigation? A what? A review of your files for a separate investigation beyond that the Justice Department is making? No.
White House officials concede, however, that Allen has in fact shown them his records and has replied to what one called innumerable questions. The newly revived Justice Department investigation into the Allen matter is expected to take at least 2 more weeks. Senior administration officials, concerned with the amount of attention the whole affair is getting, just want it put to rest. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
Each state administers its own welfare program. But a judge in Philadelphia today handed down a ruling that could have implications for 667,000 welfare families nationwide. Earlier this year, Congress cut $1.2 billion from the federal aid to families with dependent children budget, cutting it to $7.2 billion. But today, District Judge Joseph Lord III ruled Pennsylvania may not reduce benefits to 100,000 welfare recipients. He said the federal government was too quick in adopting regulations implementing aid to families cuts. State and federal lawyers said they will appeal. You know, no news story touching so many people directly is more difficult to report than the economy. Hacking through the jungle of government reports, private analysis, bold pronouncements about economic dislocations, it's all too easy to lose sight of the people who are involved, the human beings who are hurting. Today, the Senate Democratic Policy Committee held a public forum on the effects of high interest rates. They heard from realtors, auto dealers, local officials, and farmers. And they heard a cry from the heart from one Michigan home builder named Manny Dems.
And for 2 years, we've been up and down, prime up, prime down. When I buy land, I buy a land contract. And I can't buy every day, change my mind. So when I'm tied into a land contract and I have to buy my land and do something, I can't fluctuate my business up and down every day. I kept reading the Wall Street Journal every hour, every second, every minute to see what M1 and M2. I didn't know what the heck M1 and M2 meant. So what happened in a 2-year period, 2.5 years later now, it's almost 2.5 years, Michigan is not a recession. Michigan is a depression for over 1 year, a complete depression. I have to be national rep for the National Association of Home Builders, but I'm here as an individual builder because I am tired. I've gone to every congressman I've talked to is from our district. We've gone from one, we've gone to the other, and everyone tells me this here. I only got one vote. All I'm telling you, it cost me $20,000 last year with interest and overhead on 52 houses. $1 million in 30 years. I'm going out of business. It's actually a disgrace. It's a disgrace. Me and a democracy, Manny Dems, 30 years with my wife and 3 kids, and I got to worry about what Volker's going to do. I'd like the Reserve Board to resign themselves, to overhaul the Federal Reserve Board. This is something that they're not the fourth branch of government. We got the executive, we got the legislative, we got the judicial, but we don't have the Federal Reserve Board as a fourth branch of government. They're autonomous, but they're running our country. We've got to do something to change it. But what I would like you to ask you to do, if you ask me immediately to sum up what I want you to do, I think all the Republicans, all the Democrats in Congress, stop playing politics with my life. My democracy's at stake. Get up strongly in Congress and say, Mr. Volker, you're chairman of the board. Resign! Resign! I don't care if you're right or wrong. You are in charge. Get out! You got the monitors today. They're running a country. I'm not a politician. I'm just a builder every day on the line trying to make a buck. And what I've seen there with the monitors, with the Brill Springles, I don't even know these people, with the Milton Friedmans, the Volkers, I'm reading about all these people. These people scare me. I'm worried about my country, and I'm worried that I'm going to go down the drain. I'll fight the system to democracy. One-on-one, I'll fight till my dying day, because my wife and my family come first. I come second, my country comes third. But I'm not going to let you put me down the drain. We have Big Brother Week in the state of Michigan. You know what Big Brother Week in the state of Michigan is? Builders from Grand Rapids, builders from Flint, builders from Marquette are coming to me. Manny, help me, I don't know what to do. And I'm not over dramatic, because when I get mad, I really get mad. But I'm telling you now, all over the state of Michigan, pleading with me, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? It's so serious, Senator Regal. I can't overemphasize. It's 2 years later. The cancer, the patient has died. In Michigan, we've died. There's no more sales. People are not coming to my model. People are not coming to my houses no more. It's disgusting. It's sad. The banks are starting to call in the notes right now. What the banks? The bankers? Who are these bankers? They're running our country. I don't know why. Who? But as an individual person, I, Manny Dems, cannot compete with Wall Street. I'm not that big. I'm not powerful enough. I'm a single citizen. I vote, and I come to Washington. I talk to you, Regal. I talk to Blanchard. I talk to a few other people. A one-on-one I talk to. That's all I can do. But if Congress don't get up on it, instead of talking about the budget, I know you're going to handle all that. I respect you people. But in Congress, what you should do tomorrow morning, stand up all. Mr. Federal Reserve Board, don't rule my country. Don't rule my stand up and be counted.
I've always been a pizza snob. Frozen pizza? Never. And then I discovered Stouffer's. It's terrific. You know why? They don't use pizza crust. Stouffer's uses good French bread because French bread really stays crisp and delicious, even frozen. And then Stouffer's heaps on the best pizza makings. I'm still a pizza snob. The only frozen pizza I'll eat is Stouffer's.
There really is a good frozen pizza. Stouffer's.
I have found my new car. The Chrysler LeBaron series for 1982. LeBaron combines high mileage and luxury. The coupe even has a Mark Ross interior available. And no other car has front-wheel drive, luxury, and seat 6 at so surprising a price. Lee Iacocca's dream to combine high mileage and luxury is a reality. The 1982 Chrysler LeBaron series, they are like no other cars in America, Europe, or Japan. My new car.
In a Miami federal court, a jury is weighing the case of 3 clergymen accused of trafficking with the enemy. The verdict may well turn on exactly what President Carter meant when he said Cuban refugees were welcome in the United States. Charles Gomez has covered the trial.
What started out as a mission of mercy by 2 Episcopal priests and a Methodist minister turned into a courtroom ordeal. Fathers Leopold Frade and Joseph Doss and Reverend Roberto Perez were charged by the U.S. government with violating a seldom enforced law forbidding trade with the enemy. In June of 1980, the priests brought 402 Cubans to Key West aboard a converted World War II submarine chaser named God's Mercy. The trip was funded by donations from their parishioners in New Orleans. The 3 clergymen spent thousands of dollars in Cuba for hotel, food, and other expenses for themselves and many of the refugees. That was after the Carter administration banned all trade with Cuba in May of 1980 to stop the unauthorized boat trips.
These people went down to Cuba with full knowledge that it was against the law to go down after having been told by several government officials that they could not go. They went down. They didn't bring 10 and 20 people back like many other people did. They brought over 400 back.
Fathers Frade and Doss testified they believed their mission had been approved by the Carter administration. They cited a speech in which Carter said all refugees would be welcomed with open hearts and open arms. But Eugene Eidenberg, Carter's special assistant on refugee affairs, testified that statement was directed at Cubans who had already arrived in the boat lift and did not sanction further illegal trips. The clergymen testified they had no choice but to go through with their mission once they started. They had given Cuban officials the names of relatives of their parishioners, exposing those in Cuba to possible reprisals. The trial has angered many church leaders who say the clergymen were acting out of a sense of Christian commitment. The priests say they have no regrets.
Absolutely not. We're still very proud of what we were able to do, and nothing that's happening this morning or any time to come could be as important as getting those people out after we'd promised to do so.
If convicted, the clergymen face jail sentences of up to 15 years and fines as high as $60,000. Charles Gomez, CBS News, Miami.
When I smoke cigars at home, my friends never object because I've got a Polynex Pure Air 99. It has a 4-stage filter, including activated charcoal. It removes smoke, pollen, and dust, everything but your relatives. Smoke goes in here, clean air comes out here. And you can even dial a citrus scent, or no scent at all. These are my friends. They're crazy about my Pure Air 99 from Polynex. Right, girls?
Great lecture, Professor. But you know, there's one point I'm not quite clear on.
Well, Dean, let's talk about it over some coffee,
Whoa!
Only half a cup. I thought you liked my coffee.
I love the rich taste. It's the caffeine I can do without.
Me too. That's why we're drinking Brim decaffeinated coffee.
This is Brim.
This is Brim, and it's decaffeinated, so you don't have to stop at half a cup.
Well, if it tastes this rich, I don't want to stop. Fill it to the rim.
With Brim.
Fill your cup to the rim with the richness of Brim.
Midwesterners are up to the tops of their hip boots in snow after the first real storm of the new season. 2 days of snowfalls and howling winds left a dozen persons dead in Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Indiana. In western Michigan, the snow was 14 inches deep. Ned Potter is in Minneapolis.
They call this the Hump, the brand new Hubert H. Humphrey Stadium in downtown Minneapolis. But today, its inflatable roof looked more like a dish, weighted down by snow and then torn open when engineers tried to pump in more air to keep it up. In Minneapolis and St. Paul, the 10-inch snow knocked out power to 160,000 homes and businesses, 1 out of 4 in the metropolitan region. It approached being the worst power outage in Twin Cities history, and the power company said full service would not likely be restored until Sunday. As the storm swept eastward, it left damage from the Great Lakes to Georgia. In Muskegon County, Michigan, 25,000 customers without power and fears that melted snow would freeze tonight and damage more lines. At Atlanta's Hartsfield International Airport, a line of thunderstorms and a small tornado came through shortly after midnight. 3 small planes destroyed, 21 jetliners damaged, total loss estimated at $1.5 to $2 million. And the storm system did not reach the eastern seaboard without leaving one more casualty. A helicopter turned upside down and dumped in the Hudson River near New York City. The pilot said they'd been hit by lightning. Around the Twin Cities late today, the sun had come out, but power had still not been restored to 86,000 customers. This was the second heaviest snowfall here in 15 years. Ned Potter, CBS News, Minneapolis.
Come back! Jimmy! Come back! Please come back home. I'll never feed you ordinary dry dog food again. I promised. See? I got your tender chunks. It's more like meat.
Ordinary dry can't cut it like an oration tender chunks can.
Cuts like meat, chews like meat.
And I got a great big bag at home, too.
Ordinary dry can't cut it like an oration tender chunks can.
Sure hope you got what I want.
What's wrong?
Pain, itch, you know, hemorrhoids. Been driving all day, and I need Preparation H.
Right, often gives many people temporary relief for hours from occasional pain and itch. Thousands of doctors recommend Preparation H. Even helps shrink swelling of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissues.
Hi. Feeling better?
Thanks to you, good buddy.
Doctor recommended Preparation H. Relieves pain and itch. Even helps shrink swelling.
The French government of Socialist President Mitterrand has undertaken a controversial campaign to curb a problem of increasing concern. David Andelman in Paris has the details.
Today, says the ad that's inescapable these days on French television, each woman should be able to choose. The choice is to have a baby or not. And it's the biggest campaign to promote contraception since the governments of this Catholic country opted for birth control as a policy some 25 years ago. In recent years, officials believe things have started getting out of hand in France. Nearly 350,000 abortions here last year, 1 out of 3 among young women under 18 out of wedlock. So when Yvette Roudy became the nation's first Minister of Women's Rights, as a cabinet member, she decided she had a duty.
First, we are starting with by the beginning, because nothing really has been done seriously in France until now. So I think a government has the duty to provide ways and means to people to help them to manage and to organize their life as they wish to do, not to put more obstacles or anything else.
So under Roudy's pressure, 1,000 contraceptive information centers have been opened across France, in town halls and post offices in remote rural areas where it's found contraception is practiced most casually, and in the big cities. There are counselors to tell women about contraceptive devices and methods, and there'll be research, too, under her ministry on new birth control techniques. The church, a powerful social, moral, and political force here for 1,000 years, has been uncharacteristically quiet through all this commotion, a fact government officials attribute to the Pope's defeat earlier this year on a referendum to outlaw abortion. But in France, contraception, not abortion, is the wave of the future. David Andelman, CBS News, Paris.
Wednesday, President Reagan quoted from a letter he wrote to Soviet President Brezhnev last April, saying the United States wants to curb the growth of nuclear weapons. To counter that letter, the Soviet embassy in Washington tonight released a letter that Brezhnev wrote Mr. Reagan in May, saying there should be negotiations between the two superpowers to seek, quote, with no bias, solutions to all major questions existing between us, unquote, Brezhnev. It began just a year ago with a single powerful roar that shattered the still of southern Italy and rocked its way north to the Alps. It was to become Italy's deadliest earthquake in more than 70 years, a convulsion that damaged a vast 10,000 square mile area around Italy's ankle, killing almost 3,000 persons, injuring and leaving homeless tens of thousands more. In the years since that devastating quake, the victims have dug out of the rubble and have begun to rebuild. But as Richard Roth reports from Lione, the effort has been plagued with problems.
For a year, Michelina Pizzarusso, her husband Franco, and their 3 children have lived in a tin shanty attached to a small trailer. Next week, the family expects to move into a new home close by, along the railroad tracks where Franco works. For many of the terremotati, the earthquake survivors of southern Italy's Apennine Mountains, a new style of life has begun to evolve, slowly, with frustration and some anger at the knowledge it will be vastly different from the way people have lived and worked here for generations. In the town of Leone a year ago, the earthquake killed 260 people, left almost 6,000 homeless, and shattered buildings that had stood for centuries. Today, Leone has the look of a frontier town carved from rubble, bustling, dusty, improvised. Behind a shattered church, services are held under a tent. School reopened this fall, 3 noisy classrooms in a small and sometimes chilly temporary building. Trailers housing a few dozen families line the main street, but these people are among old Leone's last residents. The earthquake forced thousands of people from their homes in the center of town a year ago. Now, the government has nearly finished moving them into new settlements on the outskirts of the old one. The first phase of the Italian government's recovery plan is almost complete in more than 300 towns and villages ruined by the quake. In Leone, most families are now resettled in prefabricated homes, fully equipped. But a year after the earthquake, with the most basic human needs met, a new concern becomes more acute: reconstruction. And nothing the government has done so far has built confidence here that economic needs will soon be met. The mayor wants to make this a beautiful new town, says Lilino D'Amelio, but when? The money is all gone. D'Amelio complains that a movie house he owns, like most of the old town's commercial center, has been condemned. The government won't allow businessmen to rebuild here, even at their own expense. Other than provide housing, bar owner Angelo Martino says the government has done nothing. In fact, the government has provided space for some merchants in Leone's new settlements, and as part of a 3-year, $8 billion regional plan, a new commercial center is being built outside the town. It's just that many businessmen lack faith in the government's commitment to reconstruction. So do some foreign experts. The United States government is providing $50 million in aid to Italy, but most of it is being used to build a dozen schools. U.S. officials say they want a project that will be kept separate from the Italian government's plan, which they describe as vague. But even if reconstruction hopes are fulfilled and some economic security achieved, there is a growing understanding here that much of it will come at the expense of this region's identity. Richard Roth, CBS News, Leone, Italy.
This Shield Show's total has 100% of the recommended daily allowance of these 9 vitamins and iron.
Right.
Put Total Shield on one of these boxes. See how the 9 vitamins compare.
I'll try cornflakes. 25%? Total's much higher. How's Total taste?
Crisp whole wheat flakes.
Mmm.
And 100% of these 9 vitamins. That's the total difference.
In the mountains of southern Colombia, for centuries the cloth has been woven by hand. It is not the fastest way, but it is part of the heritage. The same dedication to heritage that has been passed to Juan Valdez. He picks the Colombian coffee as it has been picked for centuries, by hand, bean by bean. Only at the moment when it is best. It is no surprise that a country so rich with tradition grows the richest coffee in the world.
Presidential Press Secretary James Brady got the good news today. He will be discharged from the hospital Monday. Brady will be going home after 8 months and 4 operations for a bullet wound in the brain during the Reagan assassination attempt. Only 9% of U.S. households had television sets in 1950. By the first of this year, 97% of American homes were equipped with television. Charles Osgood dials us through that explosion of technology.
Stand by. We'll be with you in about 90 seconds from now.
It was November 1951, and that new thing, television, was showing what it could do.
We are, as newcomers to this medium, rather impressed by the whole thing. Impressed, for example, that I can turn to Don Hewitt here and say, Don, will you push a button and bring in the Atlantic coast?
All this would seem so incredible to some that Edward R. Murrow kept calling for familiar landmarks as if to say, see, it really is New York. It really is San Francisco.
Now, San Francisco, will you pan over to Alcatraz for us, please?
Yes, sir.
There it is. We, for our part, are considerably impressed. For the first
It did seem wonderful 30 years ago to tune in both coasts at once.
Since then, just think of all the things that have happened and what television has shown us right in our own living rooms.
I was strolling on the moon one day.
We've been to the four corners of the earth and to the surface of the moon.
We've been inside the human body. We have seen birth before our very eyes. And death.
Shocked the nation. General Nguyen Ngoc.
We've seen beginnings and endings, separations and reunions. Not only landmarks, but milestones. Television has taken us inside the White House.
Then it was a broadcast room under Franklin Roosevelt. President Truman used it to show movies.
Inside courtrooms.
That you, William Twain Ellis, be sentenced to death.
Some courtrooms. Into the House of Representatives, but not the Senate, not yet. We've seen what war looks like.
There's a wounded soldier in one of the bunkers, but the men are in no mood to take prisoners.
We've shared the hopes for peace. Today, with more and more communication satellites girdling the globe, every place is right next door, in television terms, and the images themselves have changed with videotape, color, miniaturization, and even 3D television on the way. Almost anything is possible, technically. Seeing two oceans simultaneously seemed miraculous 30 years ago. Today, with videotape and the rest, we can show you as many oceans as you want. The Pacific and the Atlantic? Sure. And while we're at it, the Antarctic, the Arctic, the Dead Sea, the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, the North Sea, the Indian Ocean, the Sea of Japan, the South China Sea, and oh yes, let's not forget the Sea of Tranquility up there on the moon.
Technology isn't the problem. That's something Ed Morrow realized early in the game. He once told a group of news broadcasters before television came along, just because your voice is now amplified to the point where it reaches from one end of the country to the other, does not mean that you are possessed of more wisdom than you had when your voice reached only from one end of the bar to the other. Charles Osgood, CBS News, New York.
And from the great Atlantic Ocean to the wide Pacific shore, that's the CBS Evening News for this Friday. Bob Schieffer will be here tomorrow. Dan Rather reporting from New York and hoping you have a good weekend.
High noon at 98 in the valley.
98? Boy, would I like some ice cold, hey, orange juice right now. Yeah, orange juice would sure hit the spot. High time for something cool and good.
Hi, Harry, the usual?
Nope. Today, make it orange juice.
100% pure orange juice from Florida. It isn't just for breakfast anymore.
I do have a headache, and it's right here in my temples.
Will you try extra strength Tylenol? You can't buy a more potent pain reliever without a prescription.
Well,
look at the difference in the amount of medicine in the leading pain relievers.
Extra strength Tylenol has more medication. I'll try it.
How's your headache?
It's gone. Extra strength Tylenol it's gone. I'm ready to go out there and tackle the world.
Try extra strength Tylenol, aspirin free, and you can't buy a more potent pain reliever without a prescription.
This has been the CBS Evening News with Dan Rather. This is CBS.
Darrell Beaver is found guilty of murdering his stepfather. We'll have that story and an exclusive interview with Beaver coming up next on Eyewitness News.